I've built 4 of these adjustable motor stands to sell on eBay. I've been working on this design for a while and I really like it. It's easy to adjust. It has a wide range of motion. At both pivot points you can rotate about 180 degrees and it's adjustable to different heights. And I built these specifically to work with my rod wrapping jigs that I make and sell for building fishing rods. But I think these stands possibly have some uses to people outside of that as well. The stands are adjustable in height and they use a bracket that is made to fit the 37 millimeter diameter gear motors that you find that are fairly inexpensive. You can find them on Amazon and eBay and a lot of other websites like Banggood and places like that. So these motors are very common and they're easy to find and they're fairly inexpensive also. And on my YouTube channel, I've shown some different options for setting these motors up with different types of speed controllers. But for a lot of people, you won't even need a speed controller really. If the motor you have is in the speed that you want and you don't need any adjustability there, you can always direct wire it to a power supply. And the power supplies that I use are just common wall warts is what a lot of people call them. They're just small transformers or switching power supplies that are used on a lot of different things that you find around the house. And they provide a DC voltage, and I try to stick with 12 volts personally, but you can get these motors in a lot of different voltage ranges. You can find 6 volt ones, you can find 12 volt ones, you can find 24 volt ones, but there's a wide range of RPM choices available for those motors. So just say you were building a rod drying motor and you wanted to use this stand, you could always just pick up like a 10 RPM 12 volt gear motor, the 37 millimeter diameter type, and you could use one of these stands to set up a dryer motor for your hand wrapping jig, or even just use it with some stands in order to rotate your fishing rod while the epoxy's drying. And like I said, there's other applications that people might want to use these stands for. I think these stands would work well for a lot of different applications. Now the stands, they're pretty rigid and you can tighten down the 2 pivot points to where it's hard to get it to move without quite a bit of force. But the motor mount itself, the black bracket, it's not designed to hold a whole lot of weight. It would probably hold somewhere between 10 and 15 pounds of weight. I really didn't have that sort of weight in mind for this whole setup because no fishing rod is going to weigh that much. So if you have a light duty application in mind for using one of these stands that doesn't require a lot of weight holding ability, I think you'll be okay. Now these stands are not CNC machined. I don't have that kind of precision equipment. These are all built using basically woodworking tools, even though that the stands themselves are made of high density polyethylene plastic. I use table saws, I use drill presses and things like that to lay out my holes, and I use jigs and fixtures to make building these a little quicker for me, but there is not the same kind of precision you would get if these were CNC machined. It's not built to high tolerances, I guess is what I'm getting at. So if you need something that's super precise and super precision, this isn't for you. This is just something that will allow you to raise your motor, lower your motor, set it wherever you need to, and it can turn something from that point. And the way I set these up is I just try to center the motor output shaft on my fishing rod where it's setting up in the stands. Just try to center it and get it fairly level and you're good to go. It doesn't have to be extremely accurate. And I use these for laying wraps using my hand wrapping jig. If I'm doing a really long wrap and I want to set this up for that, I can do that. But I mostly built it initially to use as a finishing motor for applying epoxy. So for that application, I chose to use a 200 RPM motor, and I use a speed controller with it because that helps me do my rod wraps. If I don't want it turning that fast, I can slow that speed down some. If I'm working on things as I go and I don't want it to get away from me, I don't necessarily want it spinning at 200 RPMs. The 200 RPMs is a really good speed if you're using it for applying epoxy, in my opinion. So as you can see, the whole setup's pretty small. It doesn't take up a lot of space. It's easy to store. Using a motor stand like this with a motor setup and using it in conjunction with a hand wrapping jig, the whole setup's easy to store. It's not as big as a rod wrapping lathe. It's more limited in its uses. I mean, you're not going to be able to turn cork grips with this like you can on some rod building lathes, but it gives you some more options with your hand wrapping jig, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the one that I sell. It could work with a wide range of them. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's called The Fishing Hobby. Just search The Fishing Hobby on YouTube. Look for a channel by that name. Click on it. Hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications. It's a little bell icon. Turn on the notifications so that you receive all the notifications. What I'm going to be doing over time is uploading videos on different ways you can set these up with different motor setups. I've already put some on there that show how to use different types of speed controllers with these types of motors, and you can find those by looking through my channel at the videos. And I have a playlist also on my channel that's nothing but rod building videos, and all my motor setups and speed controller videos are in that list also. In what I've uploaded so far, it all involves soldering and things like that. I'm going to show you some easy ways to use crimp-on connectors to make your connections. You won't need any special tools other than a wire stripper and crimper, and those are really inexpensive. So I'll show you some different ways to do that as I go along. So make sure you subscribe and tune into that as I put those videos out. It'll probably help some people out as far as determining how they want to set up their motors and what extent they want to go to as far as actually making your wiring connections and things. It can be complicated, like soldering and using heat shrink tubing, or it can be relatively simple using crimp-on connectors. None of it's too difficult in my opinion. It's pretty easy stuff to learn, but I will go over some of that as I go along on my channel. So if you're kind of undecided, or if you're on the fence about trying something like this, just stay tuned and you'll see some different videos on setting up motors. So that's all I've got. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Again, just subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will talk to you guys later.